What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is time for the weekly fragrance rotation number 34. Let's hop into it. Starting off on Sunday, I went with Polo Blue by Ralph Lauren. One of my go-tos right here. If I don't know what to wear, I just grab this one and I spray it on. Works any situation, any occasion, any season. You can't go wrong with this one right here. This is a fresh, clean, watery shower gel fragrance. On the top, you get a blast of this cucumber kind of melon vibe, and then as it dries down, it becomes a little fresh, spicy, little aromatic. You get some nice woods in the base. I get solid performance from this. I get about 7 to 8 hours of performance. What I wore on Sunday, Ralph Lauren Polo Blue. What I wore on Monday, True Religion for Men. One of my favorites in my collection at the moment. This is a recent pickup. I've talked about this one a good amount. This one right here smells very similar to things like Abercrombie and Fitch First Instinct together. So if you have ever smelled that fragrance, this one almost smells identical to that one. In the opening, very fresh, fruity, citrusy, and then as it dries down, that is when you pick up that bubblegum aquatic sweetness, combining with some bay leaf, giving it this nice herbal feel, some woods in the base. Downside, performance isn't the best. You get about 4 hours of performance, but if you want that super enjoyable, fun, playful summertime scent for a cheap price, definitely check this one out. What I wore on Monday, True Religion for Men. What I wore on Tuesday, Coach Open Road. Another recent pickup of mine, and I'm actually really impressed with the way this one smells. Definitely smells different than the modern day men's fragrance. On the top, you get a blast of lemon and red apple, so very citrusy and fruity. And then as it dries down, you pick up some fresh spiciness. It's a little aromatic. You get some nice, clean, musky woods in the base. Performance is decent. I get about 5 to 6 hours of performance. If you spray it heavy though, you could easily get 7 to 8 hours of performance. I will say this probably isn't going to be the biggest compliment getter. It's that kind of DNA to where people will think you smell good, but I don't think they will go out of their way to give you a compliment. Very clean, masculine, professional smelling stuff right here. Definitely a signature scent. Great office fragrance as well. What I wore on Tuesday, Coach Open Road. What I wore on Wednesday, Rasasi Hawass. This one just works, super fresh, clean, and fruity in the opening, and then as it dries down, you pick up that bubblegum aquatic sweetness. It's a little spicy. You get some woods in the base. Performance on this stuff is insane. You easily get 8 to 9 hours of performance. Huge compliment getter as well. This stuff is a compliment magnet. I think the performance definitely has something to do with that. Like I said, this stuff is insane when it comes to performance. It projects off your skin like a monster, cuts through the air like it's nothing. You can pick it up for a really good price as well, in that $30 to $40 range. I would highly recommend getting this one in your collection, especially if you don't have anything that smells like that Invictus Aqua DNA. This is one of the best to do it. What I wore on Wednesday, Rasasi Hawass. What I wore on Thursday, Polo Black. I have to bust this one out at least once every 1 to 2 weeks. My favorite Ralph Lauren fragrance. This one, it just takes you back in a moment in time. It smells like the 2000s to 2010s. In the opening, very fresh. You get a blast of tangerine and mango. So very fresh, citrusy, tropical. As it dries down, it becomes a little fresh, spicy, aromatic. You get a blast of this oak moss in the base as well. Still smells somewhat modern. Like I said, it takes you back in time, but it doesn't take you so far back to where it's unappealing. This is still a big compliment getter. Performance is somewhat all right. You get about 4 to 5 hours of performance. Just bring it with you though. Spray as you go. You'll be perfectly fine. Definitely a do-it-all fragrance. What I wore on Thursday, Polo Black. What I wore on Friday, Tommy Bahama St. Bart's. Saw this one sitting around. It's been a while since I pulled this one out, so I decided to wear it, and it was really enjoyable. In the opening, you get a blast of lime, and then as it dries down, you get tequila, salt, you get some woods in the base. This one right here, it just smells like margarita on the rocks. Smells like vacation time in a bottle. Performance is absolutely terrible though. This is an eau de cologne concentration, so you get about 2, maybe 3 hours of performance at best. Pops up at the rack stores all the time in that $20 range. If you want something that is going to give you that very tropical vibe for the summertime, definitely a good one to check out. What I wore on Friday, Tommy Bahama, St. Bart's. What I wore on Saturday, wrapping up the week, I went with Calvin Klein Eternity Reflections. This is another one I've been talking about a good amount on the channel, and I had to bust this one out. Really enjoyable stuff. On the top, you get absinthe, so it has this very citrus heavy opening. And then as it dries down, that is when the chocolate kicks in, providing this cocoa butter feel. But the way the absinthe and the chocolate combine, it also kind of gives it this bubblegum sweetness as well. Get some oak moss in the base, providing this nice green woodiness. Performance, really good. I get 7 to 8 hours of performance. Surprisingly big compliment getter, even though it is a pretty unique style DNA. Very shocked that Calvin Klein would go for something like this as a release. Usually Calvin Klein, they put out super basic, kind of mass appealing things. This one right here is definitely a different approach, and they nailed it out of the park. What I wore on Saturday, Eternity Reflections. All right, that wraps up the weekly fragrance rotation number 34. Let me know what you guys wore this week in the comments down below. Always love checking you guys' comments out and responding to you guys. I hope you have an amazing week. Peace.